It's interesting how more and more people are stepping back from alcohol lately, not out of strict discipline, but because they're beginning to question whether they ever truly liked it in the first place. What's even more fascinating is that this shift isn't necessarily driven by rock-bottom moments or addiction stories. It's happening among those who were never deep into drinking to begin with. Some say they felt quietly pressured for years to keep up with drinking, habits that never really brought them joy. They just went along with the ritual, not because they loved the sensation or the taste, but because society made it feel awkward not to. What makes alcohol so peculiar is how deeply it's embedded into social expectations. If someone turns down a drink, it's often met with suspicion, like they're hiding a problem. Imagine that, a substance so widely used that abstaining from it feels like the deviant choice. There are few things in life where refusing to participate makes others feel personally uncomfortable. But that's exactly what happens. People feel judged when someone opts out. Maybe it's because alcohol acts as a shared permission slip, a collective green light to relax, to behave differently, to drop social filters. So when someone stands there and doesn't partake, it unsettles that dynamic. It's like holding a mirror to everyone else's choices, even if that's not the intent. For some, saying no to alcohol isn't about being moralistic or better than anyone. It's about not needing a substance to speak up, to socialize, or to unwind. Many people, especially those who don't feel inhibited to begin with, don't see the point in chemically altering their mood. And those people often face ridicule for that very reason. Some even get labeled boring. But what does that really mean? Is excitement only valid if it's induced? Does fun only count when it's artificially inflated? There's also the idea that collective drunkenness enhances the atmosphere, especially at parties or festivals. The logic goes that if everyone's drinking, the energy changes. There's a shared looseness, a communal silliness, and yes, there's a certain appeal in that. But sometimes when you stand on the sidelines and really observe it, what you see is less joy and more chaos. People slurring words, making impulsive choices, arguing over nothing and stumbling into situations they'll regret. All in the name of a good time. It's not that every night out has to be a disaster. But when alcohol is the centerpiece, it often invites trouble. A few drinks blur the line between spontaneity and recklessness. Even those who drink occasionally have noticed how just a single drink can wreck their sleep. Devices that track rest. Cycles make it crystal clear. Alcohol and restorative sleep rarely go hand in hand. That calm feeling after a drink is misleading. Inside the body, systems are being disrupted. Recovery tanks, heart rate variability drops, brain chemistry tilts, off balance. For many, this alone is enough to reconsider their relationship with drinking, not because they're against it in principle, but because the downsides now outweigh the benefits. They realize that being able to function without it is a form of freedom. There's clarity in waking up fresh, in being fully present at gatherings, in knowing that every word and action came from a clear state of mind. Still, the cultural weight of drinking is heavy. In many places, alcohol isn't just accepted, it's celebrated. It's the marker of transition from work to rest, weekday to weekend, stranger to friend. Some see it as an emotional punctuation mark. The thing that signifies a moment is special. Her toast at a wedding, a glass after a long day, a drink to honor an occasion. These rituals give it a kind of sacredness, and questioning it feels like sacrilege. But even sacred things should be examined. Some people experiment with taking alcohol out of their lives for a time, not because they have to, but because they're curious about what changes. Some go 30 days, others stretch to 6 months, and a few carry on into years. The transformation they describe isn't just physical, it's mental and emotional. They find themselves with more consistent energy, clearer thought patterns, and fewer mood dips. The absence of alcohol doesn't leave a void, it opens space for something better. New hobbies, deeper connections, a steadier mind. Others take an entirely different route. They continue drinking but with awareness. They treat it like caffeine, something to use sparingly with intention. For these individuals, alcohol becomes an occasional tool, not a routine staple. They understand it's a shortcut to lowered inhibition But they don't romanticize it. They don't confuse it with true confidence or joy, and that distinction makes all the difference. In the broader social scene, especially in nightlife, the truth is stark. After a certain hour, most clubs and parties follow a predictable script. Noise goes up, judgment goes down, tempers flare, poor decisions abound. If you stay sober and head home before things unravel, you often experience the best slice of the evening: music, laughter, connection without the hangover. And those who've done this enough times eventually realize they aren't missing much. In fact, they're gaining a lot. Some even argue that alcohol is overvalued because it's so common. Its widespread presence makes people blind to how much space it occupies in their lives. They stop asking if they enjoy it, and instead just assume they're supposed to. But when the veil lifts, after time apart or through conscious reflection, they begin to question its role. And often the answer is surprising. Maybe they never actually liked it that much to begin with. A few even try other substances for comparison, not as an escape, but to explore altered states with more clarity. Some report that microdoses of certain compounds offer heightened awareness without the fuzziness. They stay articulate, present, and even more thoughtful. There's no slurring or staggering, no regrets the morning after. These experiences prompt even deeper questions about why society elevates alcohol, while demonizing alternatives that seem far less damaging. That leads to a broader conversation about marketing, tradition, and the stories we inherit. The image of someone who can handle their liquor is still often painted as admirable, even though we now know it often masks internal stress and deteriorating health. For men especially, heavy drinking has long been sold as a sign of strength. But in reality, it erodes hormones, impairs sleep, and slowly chips away at mental and physical well-being. The contrast between a young occasional drinker and someone who's been at it for decades is sobering, pun intended. Long-term use ages people in peculiar ways. Emotional responses flatten, judgment dulls. A kind of arrested development can set in, where individuals rely on alcohol to access feelings or fun they once experienced naturally. And still, none of this is said with condemnation. The point isn't to judge, but to inform. It's about giving people a new lens to view their choices. Because often, when they're given the facts, not scare tactics or ultimatums, they realize they've been waiting for a reason to step back. Chuang Ti Ding Duan. There's something powerful about choosing clarity over chaos, especially in a world that constantly nudges you toward numbing out. What started as a few skipped drinks becomes a revelation for some. They begin noticing how their attention sharpens, how emotions feel more grounded, and how interactions become more genuine. Evenings no longer blur into one another. Conversations are remembered. Rest becomes real. Slowly, the notion that alcohol was necessary for connection or enjoyment begins to dissolve. Others find their social circles reshaping. They realize some friendships were held together more by bar tabs than real bonds. When alcohol is removed and the haze lifts, what remains is often more authentic. There's no longer a need to rely on a bottle to loosen the tongue or fake closeness. The relationships that stay are usually the ones worth keeping. The ones that fade were likely shallow to begin with, just partnerships in intoxication, not in life. And yet, the pressure remains. Whether it's holidays, weddings, or simple dinners, the expectation to drink hovers like background noise. People offer drinks before they offer water. Declining feels like a statement, even when it isn't meant to be. You say no to a glass, and suddenly you're explaining your entire philosophy. Others look at you sideways, assuming a crisis must have caused your abstinence. The idea that someone might simply feel better without it still feels radical to many. But it's not just about saying no, it's about what you gain in that choice. Consistency becomes easier. Time feels more expansive. You start having energy in the evenings without stimulants. You sleep without disruption, wake up without regrets, and function without fog. Decisions feel cleaner. Motivation doesn't crash the next day. It's like shifting from black and white to full color. The more people experience that, the less appealing alcohol becomes. Still, there's room for nuance. Not everyone who drinks wants to quit, and not everyone needs to. For many, the occasional drink doesn't destroy health or derail progress. It's not about fear-mongering or forcing abstinence on the world. The issue is awareness. Too often, people aren't taught the actual impact alcohol has on the body and mind. They aren't told how even moderate use can influence hormones, sleep, and emotional stability. So they continue the habit without understanding the cost. There are traditions and cultures that integrate alcohol into social rituals in measured, meaningful ways. A toast shared at a celebration, a sip to honor a milestone. These moments don't need to vanish. But what matters is the intention. Drinking because something is worth celebrating is different than drinking to escape reality. One adds to the moment, the other tries to erase it. What's becoming more common now is the rise of gatherings centered on well-being. People are creating spaces where connection doesn't require intoxication. Saunas, cold plunges, nature walks, silent retreats, even dance nights without substances are becoming popular. These aren't sterile or boring environments. They're vibrant in a different way. People still laugh, share stories, and feel connected, but they wake up feeling just as good as they did the night before, maybe even better. In those environments, no one needs an excuse to be present. You don't need to lower your guard chemically to feel welcome. The bond is built on being alert and engaged, not dulled and distracted. That's the new direction many are heading, toward gatherings where energy is high but minds stay clear. And then there's the science. Research continues to uncover just how much light, sleep, and environment influence emotional well-being. It turns out our biology thrives on rhythm. Natural sunlight in the morning resets mood. Darkness at night helps the brain restore itself. When these rhythms are disrupted by artificial light, late-night scrolling, and yes, alcohol, our systems get thrown off balance. Anxiety increases, depression deepens, focus diminishes. Most people never link their emotional turbulence to these patterns. They blame stress, work, or personality. But often, it's lifestyle noise that creates internal static. Alcohol is just one part of that, but it's a significant one. It acts like a sledgehammer to the sleep cycle. It sedates instead of soothes, and when it wears off, the brain often rebounds into a state of overactivity, leaving people more anxious than before they started drinking. What's more ironic is that people often drink to relax, yet the substance itself ramps up cortisol and stress in the long term. It mimics ease but leaves behind tension. It feels like it's helping in the moment, but biologically it's often doing the opposite. And so when people step away from it, even briefly, they begin to notice how deeply it influenced their baseline state. The irritability that once felt normal fades. The sluggish mornings disappear. Their sense of control returns. They realize their joy doesn't need to be summoned from a bottle. It was always there, buried beneath layers of habit. For those raising kids, this awareness becomes even more important. Modeling healthy regulation, not just of behavior but of coping strategies, becomes part of the legacy passed down. When children grow up watching adults process stress without substances, they learn resilience. When they see joy created through connection and creativity, not consumption, it changes how they relate to discomfort later in life. That's not to say every parent has to live like a monk. Life will always include moments of indulgence, but showing that fun and rest don't require intoxication can be a powerful example. And that begins with questioning the default, with asking, do I even enjoy this? Or am I doing it because everyone else is? In the end, the goal isn't perfection, it's honesty. When someone chooses to step back from drinking, it doesn't mean they're judging others. It just means they're choosing something different for themselves. And if that choice creates more peace, more energy, and more connection, it might be worth keeping, even if the rest of the world hasn't caught on yet.